Thanks for joining today's webinar on creating effective newsletters. My name is Chris and I'll be your host for today. And today we're going to take a walk through creating effective newsletters for your affiliate program. So we're going to take a look at some of the best content to use in your newsletters, what the cadence should be for sending newsletters out to your publishers, how to segment and create publisher groups to send your newsletters out to, and then some of the best ways to follow up from your newsletters after you send them. So at the end of the webinar, I'll open it up for any questions. So feel free to submit questions as we go along. And then at the end of the webinar, I'll take a look. And just so everyone knows, I'll be sending a copy of the deck from the presentation after the webinar is over as well. And then there'll be a recording located on the Knowledge Center for everyone to view once the webinar is over. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I mentioned before, our quick agenda today will be taking a look at selecting your content for creating your newsletter, segmenting and creating your publisher groups, creating newsletter and the actual Pepperjam newsletter feature, and then frequency and follow-ups that you should be using for your newsletters for publishers. So just as a quick introduction as well, publisher communication should be key to any successful affiliate program, and newsletters are one piece of that. So you should also be communicating with your publishers in terms of email, hopping on phone calls with them, maybe even having some in-person meetings with them. And newsletters should also be a key part of your communication to your publishers. So in this webinar, we're going to focus specifically on sending newsletters. So let's take a look at some of the different types of content that you might want to use when you're looking to send newsletters to your publishers. So a few general content types that you might want to take a look at, or why you might want to send some newsletters to your publishers, would be for any website or product updates. Maybe you've had a website redesign, or maybe you have some new products that you like publishers to know about. A great reason to send a newsletter out to your publishers. Maybe you've updated your commission structure. Maybe you have a new tier set up for publishers to earn increased commission, or maybe you have a change in how you'd like to adjust your payouts to certain types of publishers, like coupon publishers. Might be a great reason to send a newsletter out. If you have any upcoming sales or promotions, it's always a great time to send a newsletter out as well, so that publishers can have the most relevant info when they're promoting your site. If you do have maybe top performing creatives, or maybe you've added some new creatives for the program, it's a great time to send a newsletter out to your publishers. Bonus opportunities and contests as well. So giving publishers the opportunity to get an extra commission, or maybe a flat bonus amount if they're able to hit certain sales goals for the program. Or maybe you have a new gift guide or holiday gift guide coming up, can be another great reason to send a newsletter. So some general content guidelines for creating your newsletters is that you'll always want to keep them between 1 and 2 scrolls. You don't want them to be too long, as publishers might have a lot going on, and they really just want to get the meat of what you're sending as quick as possible. But no matter what your subject matter is going to be, you're always going to want to use a attention-grabbing subject line. So think of your publishers in terms of consumers as well, as something that they can get excited about when promoting the program. So you want to include all relevant info for your promotion. So if there's certain calendar dates, maybe there's different codes that are restricted or something like that, you want to make sure you're including all of that info for publishers to use. And then always make sure that you're including any follow-up info, so that publishers that have any questions about what they might be seeing in your newsletter can always get in contact with you to discuss. And a general layout for your newsletter is you'll want to have an introduction, so outlining the purpose for why you're sending this newsletter, what the body of the newsletter will be. So you always want to keep that maybe 1 to 2 paragraphs, just talking about your promotions or whatever the content will be, and providing your contact info. Keep in mind as well that when you're creating a newsletter, you can tag your creatives. And this is great because publishers can pull that link right from the newsletter when they receive it, and they don't need to log into their publisher account in order to use it. So especially if you've added some new creatives, or maybe you have a set of preferred creatives that you would like publishers to use, you always want to tag those in your newsletter as well. And I have just some quick examples of some different types of newsletters, just in terms of the content. So you can take a look at these. I'm not going to read through each one, but just to give you an idea of what you might want to include in a newsletter. So for example, the one on the left-hand side is just outlining the general website info, so just giving a description of the website, what the average order value might be, what the potential commission is for promoting the program, and things like that. So also sending a newsletter for commission structure updates or maybe program updates is something that you'll want to use as well. So maybe you're increasing your commission, as the example on the left would show. Maybe you're updating your default rate or giving publishers an opportunity to earn extra commission. You can send a newsletter out for that reason. And then over on the right side, we do have a feature that allows you to add suppressed codes to the program. And without getting too much into that, I just wanted to give an example of how you might want to lay this out for your publishers. So if you have some specific codes that are not meant for the affiliate channel, you want to make sure that publishers are aware of that so that they can make sure they're using the codes that are approved for your program. And another reason that you might want to send a newsletter is for bonus opportunities and contests. So I have some examples here as well. So over on the left side, it's just a quick example of an opportunity for a flat bonus. So you might want to say any publisher that generates a certain amount in sales will get, for example, 200 and a flat bonus at the end of the month. Or over on the right side, I have an example of a breakout of different tier structures for publishers to get an increase in their commission amount if they're able to hit certain sales goals for that particular month. And so when you're sending your newsletters, it's always important to think about what your audience is going to be, and you can certainly send it to all publishers in your program, but you might want to consider segmenting them and creating some publisher groups to send that specific content to so that they have the most relevant content for promoting the program. So I'll take a quick walkthrough of the importance of creating publisher groups. Creating publisher groups is very helpful for segmenting your publishers based on maybe their promotional methods, their performance in the program, or maybe you have a group of publishers that you're running a contest for and you want to make sure that you're keeping track of them. When you create groups, you can also view their trending when you're looking at reporting. So maybe you want to see if your coupon sites are trending up and down and things like that. But it's also very helpful to communicate with your publishers and send them specific newsletters. And we'll get a little bit more into the types of content that you'll want to send here in a little bit as well. So I'll take a quick walkthrough of creating publisher groups in the interface. So to create a group, you want to navigate to the Publishers tab, Manage Publishers, and click on Manage Groups. You can use the filter to select publishers, and it's pretty similar to the Manage Publishers page. You can add them to your group, and once your group's ready to go, you can click Save. And once your group's all saved, you can use that in different areas throughout the interface, and then it'll be available for you to select when you're sending out your newsletters. So considering what types of content that you'll be sending to your publishers, you'll want to take a look at the groups that you have created. So maybe you're sending an update on available coupons, or maybe you have some new promotions and things like that. You might want to just send that to your coupon and loyalty sites. But maybe you have a new gift guide or something like best products or something that's more content driven. That's the type of content that maybe bloggers or influencers would be interested in. So you might want to create a group for them so that you're sending them that type of content as well. And since publishers are often promoting a lot of programs or different advertisers, being sure that you're delivering that types of content for them to have can make them have that info and be able to utilize it more efficiently. And I have a quick outline of some of the different things here as well, just for what you might like to send. Especially for loyalty sites, they're looking for what your commission rate might be or what that cash back that they can give to their members would be. And bloggers and influencers are looking for new products, bestsellers, and things like that. But it's also to say that you might want to still include promotions and upcoming coupon codes and things when you're sending to bloggers or influencers, but just keep in mind the types of content that you're sending to them. So take a quick walkthrough of creating your actual newsletter in the interface. So once you've decided on what your content's going to be and you have any of the groups that you need to create selected, you can go to the Publishers tab and you'll click on Create Newsletter. So you can choose your recipients. So you can send this to all publishers in the program. You can pick a specific group. You can also use this based on their transparency rating, their join date for when they join the program. You can also choose by their promotional method or add individual publishers to create a custom list. You can also refine your send list. So maybe you wanted to send this to coupon and loyalty, or maybe you have a few groups that you want to include on your send. You can always refine your list and send to each group as well. So you want to choose an internal name just for your reference, and then use a subject line. So it's always good to have an attention-grabbing subject line when you're sending your newsletter as well. And then you'll use HTML to build out the body of the newsletter. So if you don't have an HTML software that you already use, there's a number of free options available. One that I like to use is Composer. But we can also provide some basic templates for you to use. So if you're interested in that, definitely reach out to either the customer care team or your account manager for more info. And as we mentioned before, you do have the tag feature available when you're creating your newsletters. So this is great to tag some specific creatives for maybe you've just recently added some creatives. Maybe you have some creatives that you know perform really well for the program. Maybe you have some creatives that you prefer that publishers use when they're promoting the program. It's always good to add those in there so that they can grab that link right from the newsletter when they receive it. And when you're ready to either save or send, there's a few options available. So you can save it as a draft, so you want to use this option if you'd like to come back and revisit the newsletter later. You could queue it for sending, so if everything's double checked, you're definitely ready to send this out. The system will get ready to process that HTML and send your newsletter. But you can also schedule it for sending, so you can pick a few days and times that you'd like this to be sent. So maybe, for example, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you have a few newsletters for upcoming promotions you want to send out. You can schedule them for specific dates and times so that they'll automatically go out. I also recommend, even if you've finished creating your newsletter, you might want to schedule it for a few hours after in order to send, because when you do hit queue for sending, the system does start to process the HTML and you won't be able to make any more edits. All right, and in addition to sending your newsletters, it's important to understand what the frequency and what the method for following up with your publisher should be. So you might want to get on a cadence of sending your newsletter at least on a monthly basis, but maybe on a weekly basis as well. So even if you don't have anything necessarily specific to reach out to your publishers about, it might even just be a good idea to remind them of their incentive to promote the program and give them a few creatives to use just to kind of put your program back on their radar. And especially if you're running a contest with your publishers, be sure to continue sending your updates to them until that contest is complete. And as we mentioned before as well, newsletters are a great tool for communicating with your publishers, but some publishers have multiple direct contacts that might be working with them or working with different programs. So it's always a good idea to send your newsletter content directly to maybe your top 10 or your top 20 publishers. And be sure to keep track of any outside contacts that they might have that aren't directly tied to their Pepperjam account to just make sure you're sending them that info. And just as a quick summary, when you're creating your newsletters, you always want to select the type of content that you're using, developing your cadence for how often you're going to be sending these newsletters, either on a monthly or maybe weekly basis, and considering creating some publisher groups to help segment and delivering that content that those publishers will be looking for when they're promoting the program. Always utilize the tag feature to highlight some new and preferred creatives for those publishers to use. You might want to consider scheduling your newsletters ahead of time. And then in addition to sending your newsletters, you want to continue to reach out directly to publishers through email and setting up phone calls and things like that to continue to grow your partnerships. All right, everyone. So I'll open it up for some questions, and I see a few have come in, so I'll take a look at those, and we'll get those answered shortly. All right, so the first question I have is that publishers already have access to your files or your links. So how would sending a newsletter to them be beneficial? So sending your newsletters to publishers can help to remind them of what their incentive is to promote the program. But especially if you've recently updated creatives or maybe you have new content as well, they might not be logging in and constantly checking that for each program that they're partnered with. So giving them that reminder through sending a newsletter is just great to give them that overall updates for the program. So especially when you do have something to talk about, maybe promotions or an update to your website, it's great to make sure that publishers are aware. And I do have a question as well for getting a response to newsletters. And this is why it's great to always try to develop some additional context for publishers, as publishers may have someone that's directly managing the program that's not necessarily tied to their Pepperjam account. So it's always good to reach out to them directly to make sure that they have that info as well. And unfortunately, at this time, we do not have the ability to see a newsletter report in terms of open rates and things like that. So I think that's why it's always a good idea as well to continue to reach out to your publishers. But it's still a good idea to send these newsletters out to your publishers to make sure that they can see this types of info. And so I have another question as well in terms of when to send a newsletter when you have a promotion coming up, for example, Tuesday through Friday. So you want to give publishers as much time as you can. So unless it's something that's specific to when that promotion starts, but just to make sure that they have the ability to get that code added or get that promotion added to their site. So as much time as you can give them, the better. Especially you want to also be reaching out to them directly. So you might want to consider developing a promotional calendar and kind of taking a look at when you'd like to maybe send your notification out to those publishers. Yeah, so I have a question as well as what to include besides maybe just creatives like banners, coupons, and some general info about your promotions and what some other recommended content might be. Especially to give them any insight into best performing products or if you have updates to your site, maybe even if you have a blog or something like that that can help them get some more info on the program. Any kind of relevant info that you think would be helpful for publishers to promote. So one thing I always like to consider is gift guides, but especially extra product info and things like that. But you might also want to run some contests with publishers. This is a great way to kind of motivate them and incentivize them to kind of jumpstart their promotion for the program. And I have a question on if a publisher is using those new creatives that you sent in your newsletter, how can you tell if they're using them as opposed to some older creatives you have for the program? So what you can do, there is a report. You'll go into the reports tab and then you'll see creatives. There's two options there. It's for creatives and creative report by publisher. And you can see each creative has a unique ID. So you'll see that when you're tagging it in the newsletter as well, it'll show you what that ID is. And when you go to the creatives report, you can see if any publishers have been able to generate some clicks and some sales with that, those newer creatives. All right, and do we have any other questions? All right, and just so everyone knows as well, I'll be sending a copy of the deck with some answers to all the questions that were asked as well. If you do have any questions, you can always reach out to the customer care team or your account manager for more info. And then be out on the lookout for a copy of the deck. And then the recorded version of this will be located in the Knowledge Center shortly after we conclude today's webinar as well. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for joining. Have a great day.